From the Victory Studios in downtown Little Rock, this is Capitol View with your host, David Goins.
And good Sunday morning to you. Welcome into Capitol View. Hope you're enjoying your Labor Day weekend. We're not taking a break here at Capitol View with not one but two statewide candidates on set this morning to talk about the race for Secretary of State and Lieutenant Governor. But we start with what's turned into a two-week parade of big-name national Republicans dropping into the state. We start with former Arkansas governor and current Floridian Mike Huckabee throwing his support behind Congressman Tom Cotton in his run for U.S. Senate against Mark Pryor. Huckabee told reporters he served with Pryor in the state legislature, likes him personally, but reiterated the national GOP mantra of Arkansas senior senator being too closely aligned with a president that is wildly unpopular with voters in the state. As for Huckabee, he's actively stumping for candidates in various states with designs on 2016 very much a possibility.
Congressman, it's an honor to be with you. I couldn't get much more involved, unless I decided to run for something. But that's out there in the future. Right now, we got to get through 2014 and get people like Tom Cotton elected. It's an honor to be with you. And
speaking of possible presidential candidates, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie stumping for Asa Hutchinson in North Little Rock on Wednesday. Christie, head of the Republican Governors Association, which has spent a good amount of money trying to tie Mike Ross to D.C. Democrats like House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, the president, and the health care law, despite Ross voting against final passage of the Affordable Care Act 4 years ago. Christie told reporters at Lindsay's Barbecue on Wednesday that the Arkansas governor's race a top priority for national Republicans.
You want somebody who's been an executive, who knows how to run things, who knows how to take responsibility for things and make things happen. That's what Ace has done. The fact is, I'll make that decision, as I've said, in the beginning of 2015. And now, I'm not being coy about it. I'm obviously thinking about it.
Be a little coy about it. Christie will likely end that will he, won't he drama after the new year about running for president in 2016. But observers are pointing to his recent trips to the South as testing the potential presidential waters. Well, Mike Ross responding, saying Christie's visit doesn't help Hutchinson's cause, saying Congressman Hutchinson's so desperate to distract from cheating on his own taxes that he's willing to stand side by side with a scandal-plagued New Jersey politician as he smears and attacks my wife and myself, and does so with false allegations completely debunked by the Arkansas Democrat Gazette and the U.S. House Ethics Committee. Now, the former 4th District Congressman also turning his attention to Arkansas veterans this week and another tax cut proposal. Mike Ross, flanked by a group of veterans at his campaign headquarters on Tuesday. Democrat nominee says he wants to look at exempting retirement income that veterans earn, which Ross says would make the state more attractive for veterans and be able to do so with a change on how the state currently treats some of its veterans.
I'm suggesting today that one of the ways that I think we could very well pay for it is by reducing the number of veterans in prison by allowing more of them to be in some alternative sentencing programs like veterans treatment courts.
Ross has also called for reduction in the state income tax and a cut to the sales tax paid by manufacturers in his bid for governor. Well, a lot of attention around a new ad put out by the Mark Pryor campaign this week.
Tom Cotton voted against preparing America for pandemics like Ebola.
Now, the ad highlights Cotton's 2013 vote against a version of pandemic and emergency preparedness legislation. But nonpartisan fact checker PolitiFact this week gave this 30-second spot a mostly false designation, saying the flashy ad ignores the fact that Cotton later changed his vote and supported a final version of pandemic preparedness. Pryor defended the ad on Wednesday as representative of Cotton's troubling voting record against the Farm Bill and funding for research at Arkansas Children's Hospital. Well, if you're a regular watcher of Capitol View, you've heard the take. A poll before Labor Day is kind of like one of those preseason college football polls. They're fun to look at, but questionable on how much they mean. I mentioned they're fun to look at. There they are. Let's take a look. The Republican-leaning Rasmussen poll finds the Senate race in yet another statistical dead heat, with Mark Pryor nudging ahead of Tom Cotton 44 to 43%, but note the margin of error there, 4%, so it's tight. Same poll, pretty close to the same outlook for governor as well. Rasmussen giving Ross the 46-44 edge over Asa, coupled with that same 4% sampling error. Again, the toss-up continues. Well, turning to the state capitol, health insurance rates expected to drop next year on the insurance marketplace and for Arkansas's compromised Medicaid expansion. Governor Mike Beebe's office saying that insurance rates will drop an average of 2% next year. The private option uses federal Medicaid dollars to buy private health insurance plans for low-income adults. At North Arkansas Regional Hospital in Harrison, administrators there say the program helps offset the $20 million lost from cuts to the federal Medicare program.
Communities like ours need a small hospital. It's just too far away to get the kinds of care we provide. There's a lot of people walking around in our county that wouldn't be here if we weren't here.
The legislature will decide next spring whether to continue funding for the private option. And less than 2 months after the legislature opened 600 prison beds, the state's largest county lockup closed again to most non-violent offenders. You'll recall county jails around the state were clogged up with over 2,700 inmates that should be in state prison earlier this spring. That number is still over 2,000. Governor Mike Beebe and lawmakers jumped in with $6 million to help ease that pressure, but that pressure is now built up again in Pulaski County.
I'm disheartened that once again we're in the same position where the jail is closed, but we could put in $6 million more today and be in the same position 2 or 3 months from now.
Legislature already looking at longer-term solutions for crowded jails. Well, she says it's one of the worst-run constitutional offices in recent memory. Susan Inman in studio on change she says needed in the Secretary of State's office. Stay right there. I'm David Goins. You're enjoying Capitol View on a holiday Sunday morning.
Your voice, it's like spring morning.
Jubilant.
Gorgeous.
A bowl of Lucky Charms, marshmallows only.
I never want this to end.
The Voice returns Monday, September 22nd, followed by the premiere of The Blacklist here on NBC.
What the hell happened to you? Do you have any idea?
What the hell was that?
I don't know. It just felt so right.
The Blacklist premieres Monday, September 22nd after The Voice here on NBC.
You say avocado? Old El Paso says zesty chicken and avocado tacos in our stand and stuffed tortillas. You say stand and stuffed tortillas. Old El Paso says start somewhere fresh.
How do you help her? Make Helper with your favorite ingredients for a fresh taste you'll love. Helper, make it yours.
Now, make restaurant-inspired dishes with Ultimate Helper.
It's hot. That means the likelihood of a power outage will increase dramatically. Don't sweat it. Get a whole home standby generator from Tri-State today. You lose all comfort and convenience when your power goes out. An outage of any length means you have to replace all that spoiled food in your refrigerator and freezer. And the summer heat becomes doubly oppressive when there's no power in your home. Call Tri-State today. Why wait?
Marvin Windows and Doors mean more to the people that choose them because they do more for their homes than any other window. Only Marvin combines a century of industry-leading design innovation with unmatched quality, durability, and energy efficiency for exceptional value. Which Marvin will be your Marvin?
From Main Street to your street, Marvin has a solution that just fits. Find the perfect window solution for your project at your Marvin Windows and Doors retailer, Plymouth Building Products, in North Little Rock today.
They'll see you before you see them. Cops are cracking down on drinking and driving. Drive sober or get pulled over.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back to Capitol View. I'm David Goins here on Capitol View. If you've been watching, and I know you have, it's our goal to introduce you to as many statewide candidates as possible leading up to the November 4th election. It's our pleasure to welcome to the program this week Democratic candidate for Secretary of State, Susan Inman. Susan, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, we're talking about the Secretary of State's office. This is, I know, your first foray into a statewide office. And I know you were also with the Pulaski County Election Commission for several years. Talk about your decision to, decide to run for Secretary of State.
Well, I can tell you, quite frankly, there's a lack of leadership in the current Secretary of State's office, and I want to change that.
When you got into this race, what you mentioned, lack of leadership. Can you kind of expound exactly what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Yeah. From the beginning of the tenure for the current secretary, it's sort of continually had problems. First thing off the plate when he came into office was to take a very expensive retreat at taxpayers' expense. We had the illegal attorneys being hired that the court had to tell him he couldn't do that. There's been scandal with staff members. And as we saw in the primary election this May, over 1,000 otherwise eligible absentee voters had their ballots thrown out because the current secretary didn't find it important enough to educate the voters about the changes in the new voter ID law.
So you don't feel they spent enough on voter education?
Oh, absolutely not.
I mean, other states have spent less.
Oh, well, maybe the laws were written differently. I mean, this particular law has been called the worst written voter ID law in the nation. I think there are a lot of changes that could be made with this law to make it more accommodating to the voters. I mean, specifically for the absentee voters, there was no remedy if they didn't send an ID with their ballot.
Isn't that the fault of the legislature, though, more so than Secretary of State? I mean, he can only work with what he's presented for the legislature, and it sounds like if the law's flawed, isn't that the problem? I mean, how could you have done better, I suppose?
Our current Secretary of State worked very closely with the authors of that bill to pass that legislation. So, and there was discussion early on about, hey, I think we need a remedy for absentee voters, and it was thrown away. And it was never written into the law.
Should Secretary of State take a position on legislation? Are you
I think
against that idea? Or,
no.
okay.
In the past, Secretaries of State have had packages of legislation and reach out to the stakeholders that actually are the election commissioners and county clerks and the people that conduct the elections to see what the problems may or may not be with any proposed legislation. It's kind of what associations do.
And you talked about working with, or when you left the Pulaski County Election Commission, you did some work with, I guess, like a statewide association of other election.
I'm the founder of the Arkansas County Election Commissions Association, and it's a statewide professional organization of all the county election commissions across the state. Bipartisan. I mean, Democrats and Republicans working together. It's the county clerks, our participants, all of the people that help conduct elections in our state. We come together twice a year to continuing education. We invite the Secretary of State. We invite the State Board of Election Commissioners to help us, educate us, and share our concerns with legislation or voting equipment or whatever problems we want to discuss.
Do you think voter ID is enough to have a change in the Secretary of State's office? I mean, let's face it, incumbency is what it is, and it's a lot of times incumbents get reelected.
They do, just by virtue of being an incumbent, but that voter ID law and the implementation of that is not the only thing that the current Secretary has done. I mean, as we saw in the last 2 weeks, he's been claiming illegally the homestead tax credit. I mean, there's just continual things occurring in that office that I think it's time for a change. I want to bring good, true leadership to that office and restore the integrity.
You mentioned Secretary of State's supporting legislative package. I mean, what exactly would you have in mind if elected Secretary of State?
Well, you always need to revisit current election laws and find out things that need to be corrected in the legislation to make it more workable for the voter or for the election commissioners to conduct the elections. I mean, we need more training for our election officials. We need to look at upgrades in the voting systems. Our equipment is 10 years old. I mean, it doesn't last forever. We need to look at new voter registration systems. I'd like to look at online voter registration. I want to take this Secretary of State's office into the 21st century. They're lagging in their technology. I hear it from the Business and Corporations Department. We're all, nonprofits and for-profit corporations are recorded. The website is very difficult to manipulate and maneuver. I hear that from people all across the state. It needs to be a website that you or I or any citizen can easily search to find campaign expenses, where the candidates are getting their money. It's a resource for information, and it should be readily available.
And since we're talking on Labor Day weekend, I always think about, things that could take a lot of hard work to fix. If you're given the voter ID law and the Supreme Court ultimately doesn't overturn the voter ID law and you're elected, how do you handle it given its problems? How do you do that?
Well, if the Supreme Court doesn't overrule it, it's law. I mean, the law exists right now, and we may be working under that law in November as well. But when the legislature comes back, I think a real effort needs to be made to work with the legislature. And if I were Secretary of State, that's exactly what I would do, to see what remedies we can add to, if that bill is still on the books, remedies we can add to make the tweaks needed so that absentee voters are not disenfranchised. And something just as simple as submitting the ID when the application is sent in, requesting the ballot, rather than waiting until the ballot comes back when there's no time to correct it.
All right, well, we'll keep a close eye on this race. Susan Inman, thanks so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Good. All right, well, when we come back, we'll have a whole lot more on Capitol View. I'm David Goins. You're enjoying Capitol View on Sunday morning.
It's the model year end. And we're unleashing bonus cash on the 2014 Nissan. Bottom line, Nissan's got the most exciting lineup on the road.
During Nissan's bottom line, get up to $1,000 holiday bonus cash on top of existing offers on select Nissans.
Innovation that excites.
Shop ChooseNissan.com.
You say avocado? Old El Paso says zesty chicken and avocado tacos in our stand and stuffed tortillas. You say stand and stuffed tortillas. Old El Paso says start somewhere fresh.
How do you help her? Make Helper with your favorite ingredients for a fresh taste you'll love. Helper, make it yours.
Now, make restaurant-inspired dishes with Ultimate Helper.
I just enjoy the fact that they make me feel like family. I know that I can trust them. I'm on a very tight budget, so it's very, very affordable for people like me. Discount Tire and Brake, their customer service is amazing. They'll take care of me right then and there. I get my Michelin tires from Discount Tire and Brake. I'm getting the exact same product from Discount Tire and Brake, but I get better service and I get trusting service. They will not let you down. I know that the work is done correctly, and I know that my family is going to be safe.
I'm 56 years old. I've been paying in Social Security for almost 4 decades. I'm not a wealthy man. I've done okay in my life, but Social Security is a part of my retirement plan. If Tom Cotton really listened to the people in Arkansas, he wouldn't vote to cut Social Security. He wouldn't support privatizing Social Security and giving money to the Wall Street bankers. I can see my retirement from here, but every time I see Tom Cotton, I feel it slipping away.
The Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
And this is our Chex commercial. There's lots of choices, and each of us has a favorite, like chocolate, honey nut, and cinnamon. There's no artificial colors or flavors. That's good. And it's gluten-free. Chex, full of what you love, free of what you don't.
You asked for gluten-free oatmeal. Now it's here. New Chex Oatmeal. In the hot cereal aisle, new gluten-free Chex Oatmeal.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back to Capitol View. I'm David Goins. The candidate carousel continues, but we pivot from the Secretary of State's race to an office that some actually want to do away with. We welcome in Tim Griffin. How about that introduction?
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Really rolling out the welcome mat for you.
That's all right. That's all right. I think this is my third time on Capitol View.
Maybe the fourth. You you get the gold jacket after 5.
Is that right?
So,
well,
yeah,
I'm taking this with me.
You should.
Nothing in it.
That's right. Thanks for coming in on a holiday weekend.
Thank you.
Let's start with the Lieutenant Governor's race, because you are running for Lieutenant Governor. You've talked at length about why you're leaving Congress. Kind of catch folks up who maybe have been doing other things about why you're deciding to get into this Lieutenant Governor's race.
Well, I decided when I first got in the race for Congress that my wife and I jointly decided that we were going to take it one term at a time. And late last year, we talked about the amount of time I was missing in terms of my 4-year-old, now 4-year-old and 7-year-old, then 3 and 6. And we just decided that after 4 years, it was time to do something else and spend more time back in Arkansas. I had missed all 3 of my 3-year-olds' birthdays because of my service in Congress. So in November, we decided not to seek another term in Congress. And then in February or so, after the situation that occurred in the Lieutenant Governor's office, I got a lot of encouragement. People wanted me to continue serving, and I was very interested in doing that. And at the same time, it gave me an opportunity to be here, to be in Arkansas with my family. And so it was an exciting opportunity. I saw it as an exciting opportunity. My wife did, and I got in the race in February.
Well, we got a couple minutes here. First off, your thoughts. I know you've mentioned you're not in favor of this idea to get rid of the Lieutenant Governor's office that a couple senators have
Sure.
tossed about for 2015.
Sure.
You encapsulate quickly why.
Sure. Well, I think their proposal in particular is bad because it's sort of a lawyer job protection act. You can only become, under their proposal, you can only become the governor if you're a lawyer. If you're the Attorney General, because the Attorney General would be the one to become governor if something were to happen. In terms of the broader issue, I believe that the position's important. I remind folks that twice in the last 22 years, the Lieutenant Governor has become the governor, the permanent governor, including Governor Huckabee, in a very tumultuous time for our state. In the mid-90s. And lieutenant governors also have the opportunity to advocate and pursue policy. Recent lieutenant governors have pursued everything from online checkbook, which is the law, to the lottery, which is the law. And so what I want to do is focus on policies that will help us compete, grow jobs. There's a recent AP listing that has Arkansas 47th in job creation.
We'll talk a little bit more about that. Can you stick around for a little bit more? Okay, we'll be back with Congressman Tim Griffin talking about the Lieutenant Governor's race. I'm David Goins. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
Hi, I'm Bill Serrato, owner of Window World, home of the original 189 window. Take a look at this warehouse. All these customers can't be wrong. If you live in the central Arkansas area, give us a call for a free estimate. 316-1500, 316-1500. Thank you for your time.
Old El Paso's got a bold, new stand and stuffed shell that's blasted for nacho cheesiness.
Oh, yeah. How do you help her? Make Helper with your favorite ingredients for a fresh taste you'll love. Helper, make it yours.
Now, make restaurant-inspired dishes with Ultimate Helper.
What's Mark Pryor hiding? Let's take a look. Pryor voted to give Social Security benefits to illegal immigrants. Pryor voted to give members of Congress special benefits to purchase Obamacare. And despite record spending and trillions in new debt, Pryor voted against a balanced budget amendment. Mark Pryor, shine a light on his record, and things don't look so good. NRSC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I found a happy space, somewhere to call our own, a happy little place, and all starts with you.
After-school snacking should be fun and nutritious, which is why we put whole grain first in every General Mills Big G cereal. What matters most should always come first. General Mills, look for the Big G. It means goodness first.
Your voice, it's like a spring morning. Jubilant.
Gorgeous.
A bowl of Lucky Charms, marshmallows only.
I never want this to end.
The Voice returns Monday, September 22nd, followed by the premiere of The Blacklist here on NBC.
What the hell happened to you? Do you have any idea?
What the hell was that?
I don't know. It just felt so right. The Blacklist premieres Monday, September 22nd after The Voice here on NBC.
Hi, I'm Bill Serrato, owner of Window World, home of the original 189 window. Take a look at this warehouse. All these customers can't be wrong. If you live in the central Arkansas area, give us a call for a free estimate. 316-1500, 316-1500. Thank you for your time.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back to Capitol View. I'm David Goins. We rejoin Congressman Tim Griffin. Briefly, before we move to some stuff that's going on in Congress after the recess is up, kind of finish your point related to Lieutenant Governor.
Well, the point is that I'm, first of all, happy for every job that we get in Arkansas. But I think it's fair to say most folks understand that we can't continue down the path we're on. There was an AP analysis that looked at every state, comparing the employment in June of '09 to June of '14, 5 years. Arkansas's 47th in job creation. Mississippi was 46, is 46. Again, I'm happy for every job we can get, but that's completely unacceptable. My view is, yes, we need to try to attract businesses here, and incentives are a part of that as a tool that we use, but it's got to be a much broader effort that focuses on changing our permanent laws. Workforce training, so because not everybody wants to go to college.
Sure,
not everybody,
which Hutchison and Rossa both talked about. Right.
Not everybody needs to go to college. Not everybody wants to go to college. I believe that we need to do a top-to-bottom review of every agency. Ask every state agency head, what's your mission? What do you do well? What do you do poorly? How are you going to innovate? How are you going to serve the taxpayer better? We need to do that with every agency. Tax reform, tort reform. I think there's a number of regulatory reform. There are a number of things that include changing the permanent laws. In that way, we will be a welcome map for job growth in this state. If you look at the other states that are in the top 10 in terms of growing jobs in the country, we don't have to copy them exactly, but there's a lot that we can learn from what they've done to attract. And the truth is, we have been replacing, over the last so many years, replacing the jobs that we were losing. Just sort of keeping our head above water. We've got to do much better. If my 4-year-old and my 7-year-old, when they get older, if I want to keep them here, we've got to grow this economy. That's going to be my focus.
Okay, let's do a quick segue. The August congressional recess wraps up essentially a week from next Monday.
I want to be real clear. I don't know what a recess is.
Not at D.C.
That's right.
Everyone's definition.
That's right. Yeah.
Not at
it's
D.C.
not snacks and a nap.
Well, it can be if you want it to be. It's your choice. What do you expect, if anything, in these last 2 or 3 months of this Congress?
Sure.
No one's really optimistic about much of anything getting done.
Well, first of all, spending bill is critical. We've got a deadline on the spending bill, and I believe we'll get that done in time. You know, before we left, we got the highway funding handled. That was something that was till May of next year.
Yeah, not exactly an overwhelming solution.
Right, but an overwhelming bipartisan vote, I must say.
But a bit of a kick the can, would you say?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would like a permanent fix, but we got it through May of next year, and the next Congress will have to deal with that. But I think also you will see a number of tax provisions dealt with when we get back. Maybe not in September, but before the end of the year. I think you will see a number of what some people call extenders. There will be a sort of package put together before the end of the year. There are a number of people, including the Speaker, who's not real big on what they call a lame duck session after the elections.
Between November and December.
Yeah, and philosophically, he's not for it because you've got people who just lost who are making decisions. He would rather the newly elected Congress do it. But we've got a number of things coming up. But the spending bill, making sure that we get that done and so that we have certainty.
We will keep close tabs on that spending.
But we'll get it done.
Okay. All right. Well, Congressman Tim Griffin, thanks for hanging out on the holiday weekend. All right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend,
Thank you.
All right. Well, that is it for this edition of Capitol View. Don't forget you can stay up to date with Arkansas politics by following us on Twitter at Capitol View AR. Congressman, do you follow us already? Download Capitol View smartphone app in the iTunes App Store and Google Play. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll have a whole new Capitol View next week.
20 years at one television station. I've been blessed to be able to stay here this long.
Tom Clausen has more on an investigation. News 4 First brought you.
And then met my wife, have a daughter. So, I couldn't be happier. I'm blessed to have been here this long. have been part of this television station. And also, I'm blessed the fact that people invite me into their homes each night. That's what I'm most proud of.
Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Bob Clausen.
I'll be there as long as they want me.
We enjoyed being pioneers, and I enjoy today seeing where